Is the 2021 iPad mini good for note-taking? I'm a huge fan of taking notes on the iPad, especially the iPad Pros with their 120Hz displays. So when the iPad mini was announced a few weeks ago, I was interested to see what handwriting notes would be like on its smaller 8.3-inch display. And after using it for a few weeks, I've realized some of the pros and cons of this smaller form factor when it comes to note-taking. So starting out with the pros, portability is a huge plus for the mini. I love taking notes on my 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but it's heavy to carry around all day, and it's really uncomfortable to use it handheld, which is really where the mini excels. It's super lightweight, and while the bezels might look thick on a tablet of this size, they're actually the perfect size to rest your hand on while you're holding the tablet. And palm rejection works really well so it doesn't move the screen. I can definitely say the iPad mini is the best iPad for taking notes while holding the device itself. Which, sure, that might not be a primary use case, but if you're taking notes out in the field or if you're in a lab that requires you to move around a lot, that kind of feels like the perfect scenario to use this iPad. Speaking of working out in the field, the iPad mini now has a 5G cellular model. So if you get a compatible plan to go along with it, you can get access to 5G speeds and you won't have to worry about a Wi-Fi connection. This year, the iPad mini also finally got support for the 2nd gen Apple Pencil. So you get that double tap to switch writing tools feature, but the bigger benefit of the 2nd gen pencil is that it just attaches magnetically to the side of the iPad. This really helps me keep track of the pencil, and I don't ever have to think about charging it, which is one of the cons of the iPad 9th gen that still uses the 1st generation Apple Pencil. And if you like adding photos to your notes, you might benefit from the upgraded camera on the new iPad mini. It's now 12 megapixels, so it'll be noticeably sharper than the 8 megapixel cameras on the older iPad mini, as well as the new 9th gen iPad. This is a useful upgrade if you need to zoom in to take a picture of a teacher's notes on the whiteboard or something like that. And now for the cons. So just as the smaller size of the iPad mini can help in terms of portability and comfort in hand, it might also limit your note-taking in some other ways. When you put it side by side against the 11-inch iPad Pro, you can really get a sense of how much smaller the mini really is. The 8.3-inch screen is really about as small as I'd want to go for taking notes, and I find that even handwriting and portrait orientation can start to feel a bit cramped. I tend to go for landscape mode whenever I'm writing on the mini. You also might want to consider multitasking. So a common use case with my iPad is to have a video or a website open on half the screen and my notes open on the other half. This is fantastic on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro because you have so much screen real estate to work with. It works fine on the 11-inch Pro and the iPad Air as well, but I'll say the mini is, in my opinion, a little bit too small for this to really be used effectively. The notes become very tiny and it's just harder to read text and write. Sure, you have the ability to zoom in, but then you have to write something down, slide the page over to write more, and that makes for a much less fluid note-taking experience. So multitasking, or at least split screen note-taking on the mini, is a no-go for me. And lastly, there's typing notes. One of the things I like about pretty much every other iPad model is that you have great options for keyboard accessories that allow you to comfortably type. And just given the smaller size of the iPad mini, your options are much more limited. Unlike every other iPad model, Apple doesn't make a keyboard case designed for the mini, which kind of makes sense because it would probably be too cramped to use it comfortably anyways. This leaves you with a bunch of third-party keyboard accessories that I wouldn't recommend, again because they'd just be too small. But you also have the option to use any Bluetooth keyboard. The only problem with that is that you then have to carry around a keyboard all day, which kind of takes away from the ultra-portable appeal of this smaller iPad. Now, Apple does sell this Logitech Bluetooth keyboard called the Keys to Go for $70, and it's actually on their website as a recommended accessory for the mini, so I decided to give it a shot. It is nice and portable, and the size and layout looks good to go with the iPad mini, but the keyboard is pretty mushy. It's not very satisfying to type on, so I wouldn't really recommend it either. So if you're someone who plans on typing a lot on your iPad, other iPads that offer larger keyboard accessories might be better for you. So while note-taking on the iPad mini might not be the best experience, it is more than usable. And the more I think about it, the mini would be a perfect secondary device to go alongside a laptop. That way you can do all your typing on a laptop and use the Mini whenever you need to handwrite something. But for an all-in-one device, I think I'll stick with my iPad Pro as my go-to note-taking machine. The 11-inch model is right in the sweet spot in terms of size. I love having that keyboard as an option for typing, and the 120Hz display makes note-taking feel really smooth. Now, there's a lot more to love about the Mini than just its note-taking capabilities. This is just one tiny aspect of this tablet. So if you want to hear all my other thoughts about the iPad Mini, stay tuned for my full review coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.